My life had crumbled, torn apart by a painful divorce that left me with nothing but a bag of clothes, some old photos, and my loyal dog, Riley. The house, the belongings, they were all hers. I was practically broke and had no place to go. A friend offered me shelter in his home, and I was determined to get my life back on track. It was in this vulnerable state that I stumbled upon an opportunity for a night shift job as a campus security guard at the local community college. The thought of working nights didn't excite me, but bills were piling up, and I had to regain some semblance of control over my life. That decision led me to the most harrowing experience I'd ever face. On my first day, I was introduced to the eerie world of campus security. The core campus was surprisingly vast, with 14 buildings sprawled across the area. Our security office was located on the second floor of the parking garage, near the south entrance of the college. I was trained by the two senior guards, James and Darnell, who explained my duties. Every night, I had to patrol the entire campus, making 2 complete rounds. My shift started at 9:30 p.m. and stretched until 6 a.m., after which I'd catch a bus home. The job itself wasn't too bad. In fact, I formed a friendship with James and Darnell during the brief period when our shifts overlapped. But when they left, and the clock struck midnight, the campus transformed into an eerily silent place, void of the students and activity that filled it during the day. My interaction with others dwindled to near non-existence, limited to the occasional instructor or staff member working late. The solitude of the campus after dark was surreal. When my shift began, a few cars were usually left in the parking lot for those attending evening classes, but they'd quickly disappear. It was almost as if the campus could absorb sound, rendering it eerily silent, except for the occasional rustling of leaves in the wind. During my breaks or while on patrol, I'd entertain myself with books or spooky stories on my phone to combat the crushing boredom. But the stories sometimes left me feeling uneasy about being alone on campus after dark. Still, I got used to it, and it became a way to pass the time until my next patrol. Most nights, I found nothing out of the ordinary, except for the occasional forgotten item that I'd return to the lost and found. My primary duty was to ensure no one was lingering on campus after closing hours. It was a monotonous job, until the night I noticed something on the security cameras that sent a shiver down my spine. As I sat in the security office, sifting through the camera feeds, one screen caught my attention. It was the one showing the south parking lot, right by our office. There, I saw a large, mysterious shadow moving back and forth under one of the lamp posts. It was too big to be a bird or a small animal. I deduced that it had to be someone's presence just beyond the camera's view. I ventured out to investigate, determined to find the source of this peculiar shadow. However, when I reached the parking lot, there was nothing to be found. No sign of anyone's presence, no car driving away, and not a sound to be heard. It left me annoyed and a bit baffled, but that was just the beginning of a nightmare I could never have anticipated. That peculiar shadow in the parking lot was only the beginning of a chilling series of events. On one fateful summer night, the campus felt warmer than usual. My security uniform clung to me, and I couldn't help but break a sweat as I completed my first patrol. When I returned to the security office, there was nothing unusual on the camera feeds, except for the south parking lot. My eyes narrowed as I noticed a figure beneath one of the lamp posts, standing absolutely still. I squinted at the monitor, but the image was grainy, making it impossible to discern any details. What I could see was a tall, lanky silhouette with long, black hair that almost brushed the light. My heart quickened as I realized the figure was still there. And the camera was still recording. A sense of dread washed over me, and I couldn't help but tremble. A bone-chilling cold crept up my spine, as if my body sensed an impending danger. My shaking hand reached for the radio as I debated whether or not to investigate. Summoning all the courage I had, I ventured into the parking lot to confront this strange presence. The figure stood motionless, its back turned to me, and its head hung low. I called out, asking if they needed assistance, but there was no response. The eerie silence hung in the air like a shroud. With great trepidation, I extended my hand to touch the person, and what happened next still haunts my dreams. As my fingers brushed their skin, a searing, burning sensation shot through my hand, as if the person's skin was on fire. I recoiled in agony, shaking my hand to cool it off. That's when the apparition moved for the first time. Its head lifted, acknowledging my presence, and it turned around. What I saw was unlike anything I could have ever imagined. The body was humanoid, but the head was that of a goat or ram, with fur as black as night. Its red, fiery eyes bore into me, and strands of flesh dangled from its curved horns. A guttural, thunderous roar erupted from its throat. Terrified beyond belief, I retreated backward, my heart pounding in my chest. The creature started to move, following my panicked steps. Its presence was utterly unnatural, and I couldn't fathom what I was witnessing. I turned and ran, convinced that my life depended on putting as much distance between myself and that abomination as possible. I ran like I'd never run before, with the beast seemingly hot on my heels. Panic gripped me, and every corner of the campus seemed like a potential hiding place. When I finally reached the security office, I barricaded myself inside, plunging the room into darkness to evade my pursuer. Alone and trembling, I grabbed the phone and dialed 911. My words poured out in frantic desperation, trying to explain the incomprehensible situation unfolding on campus. The dispatcher sent a unit to investigate, but their arrival was agonizingly delayed. I waited, my ears straining to pick up any sounds outside the office, haunted by the memory of that unholy creature. When the police finally arrived, I cautiously cracked open the door and let them in. I recounted my harrowing experience and played back the security footage for them. But the looks they exchanged and the skepticism in their eyes told me they considered me either delusional or a prankster. The creature was gone, and there wasn't much they could do. I was once again left alone. My fear intensifying as I couldn't help but wonder if that malevolent entity was still lurking somewhere on the campus. There was no way I could go back to patrolling, not with the horror I had encountered. I resolved to wait in that office until the end of my shift, and I penned a note of immediate resignation, vowing never to return to that accursed place. The resignation note was left on the desk as I sat in the security office, my eyes glued to the CCTV screens. My departure from the college was inevitable, but I couldn't shake the fear that the nightmare I'd experienced might return. I was sleep-deprived, having barely managed to rest on the uncomfortable couch in my cheap apartment. Its broken AC unit made the apartment an oven, making it nearly impossible to sleep. As my shift began, I found myself struggling to stay awake. The office's air conditioning offered some relief, but it was a constant battle against drowsiness. The rule was clear: sleeping on the job was prohibited. But, in moments of weakness, I'd occasionally allow myself a brief nap to ward off exhaustion. I leaned my head on the desk, and within moments, I fell into a restless slumber. My sleep was abruptly disrupted. An intense feeling of dread overcame my weariness, jolting me awake. I rubbed my eyes and focused on the CCTV screens, and my heart sank when I saw the south parking lot camera feed. There it was again, beneath the same lamp post. A figure stood still, a grotesque silhouette. My heart raced as I saw that the camera was still recording, capturing the unmoving figure under the lamplight. The sensation of fear intensified, and I couldn't stop my body from trembling. My skin prickled, and an icy chill crawled up my spine, prompting me to action. In a matter of minutes, I was back in the south parking lot, facing the eerie figure. It stood there, motionless, as if time had no grip on it. I called out, asked if it needed help, but the response was the same as before, a silent, unbroken stillness. My outstretched hand, in an act of caution, approached the figure, and once more, that searing heat burned my skin. Recoiling in pain, I watched in horror as the figure slowly turned to face me. It was as though the very essence of my being was recoiling from the monstrosity before me. Her face, if I could even call it that, was a grotesque hybrid of human and animal. The head was that of a goat, the fur jet black, in stark contrast to her pale skin. Her eyes blazed like burning embers, and strands of decaying flesh dangled from her twisted horns. The roar that echoed from her throat was otherworldly, shaking me to my core. Instinct took over, and I fled, sprinting back to the safety of the security office. It was a desperate, heart-pounding race, and I was certain the creature was right behind me. I slammed the door shut and locked it, as if that would protect me from the malevolent force now hunting me. With the creature outside, I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. I listened in terror, my ears straining to catch any sound of her. It felt like hours before the police arrived once again, responding to my frantic 911 call. I opened the door hesitantly, revealing the bewildered officers. I replayed the footage for them, hoping they'd find some rational explanation. But they left, leaving me alone, once again. I couldn't help but wonder what this entity wanted, and why it had chosen me as its target. In the wake of these bizarre events, my life began to unravel. I felt the eyes of the entity on me, even when I wasn't on the campus. My fear was unrelenting, pushing me towards an obsession with understanding the inexplicable. A chance encounter with an investigative journalist would reveal a dark and disturbing history of the campus. Its connection to the supernatural, and an ancient curse that had plagued the place for centuries. The journalist and I couldn't let the malevolent entity roam free, terrorizing the college campus and its inhabitants. We gathered our courage, armed ourselves with knowledge about the ancient curse, and confronted the entity one final time. It was a chilling showdown. As we delved deep into the supernatural, the creature, with its head of a goat and burning red eyes, stood before us, emanating malevolence. Its thunderous roar rattled the very foundations of our existence. We held our ground, determined to uncover the truth and put an end to its reign of terror. As we faced the entity, the curse's dark secrets began to unravel, revealing a twisted web of events that had haunted the campus for centuries. The creature was a guardian of the curse, and it had been awakened by our intrusion. Our determination to break the curse challenged the very fabric of reality. In a climactic battle of wills and wits, we discovered a way to dispel the curse, banishing the entity and freeing the college from its grasp. As the creature's form dissipated into the ether, its final roar echoed through the night, marking the end of a centuries-old nightmare. With the curse lifted and the entity vanquished, the campus was no longer plagued by the supernatural. But the truth we uncovered was far from what we had expected. The curse was not the malevolent force we had initially believed. The shocking revelation left us both stunned. The entity had not been the enemy but a guardian, protecting the world from something far more sinister that lurked in the shadows. By breaking the curse, we had unwittingly unleashed a new, unknown terror upon the world. The journalist and I knew our journey was far from over. The ancient curse had merely been a barrier, concealing a far greater threat. As we left the campus that day, we understood that the battle between the seen and the unseen was ongoing, and we had inadvertently set in motion a series of events that would change our lives forever. The entity we had confronted was just a sentinel, and what lay beyond was a darkness we were ill-prepared to face. Our struggle against the supernatural was far from over, and the boundaries between reality and the unseen continued to blur.